Let me show you what he's up to right now. He's looking for his first win of the year when he's going up against another coaching legend this week in Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. Patriots offense was candidly awful last week, scoring just 7 points. And to make matters worse, Mac Jones sat out of practice yesterday with an illness, but that's not expected to impact his availability on Sunday. Now, no one is going to question the greatness of Belichick, but in his Patriots tenure, in 71 games without Tom Brady, Bill actually has a losing record. He's one game under 500. Obviously, with Brady, he's the greatest coach of all time. But we are only in week 2. But how would you describe, Rob Ninkovich, my beloved former Patriot, how would you describe how important this game is for New England?
It's a must-win game for the New England Patriots, and I say that because if you start out 0-2 and then they're playing the Ravens after that, you put yourself in a hole here to where we know the Ravens are a great football team. The Patriots are trying to figure themselves out right now, and if you watch this Week 1 game against Miami, they had some mistakes, yes, but it wasn't all that terrible.
No.
The first possession, they drive the length of the field, they put themselves in scoring position, they throw an interception. There's things that they need to clean up. They have to protect the quarterback. You have a young quarterback. You can't let free runners at the quarterback hit your quarterback, sack, fumble, recovery for a touchdown. Those 2 plays, basically 14 points. So if you can eliminate the bad football, that's what you have to do moving forward. And they have to win this game on the road. It's going to be a huge match. It's in a tough environment. Pittsburgh's always a tough team. They're always coached well.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a matchup where can they fix the mistakes that they had Week 1 and can they do it fast?
All right, so my former Patriot is preaching hope. My former Steeler looks skeptical. RC, how do you see it?
Man, I'm feeling so good right now about these Pittsburgh Steelers versus the New England Patriots. It's a feeling I never had when I was in Pittsburgh because they always had Tom Brady. Guess what? They ain't got it no more. And go figure this, right? The guy coaching for the Patriots now kind of looked like the guy that got fired from Cleveland back in the day, and I'm happy about it. I am absolutely ecstatic. When we talked about this team throughout the offseason, we asked what this offense will look like, how they will help Mac Jones take the next step in his progression, because seemingly his ceiling isn't as high from a talent standpoint. So he's going to have to learn to digest quickly. He's going to have to learn to anticipate even more. He's going to have to fix his body or work his body into a position where he can push the ball down the field. I believe Mac Jones did that part. I do not believe that Matt Patricia, I do not believe that Joe Judge are the guys to take this to the next level. And we focus so much on calling plays. What about game planning? What about strategizing through the week? What about schematically putting your quarterback and your team in the best place to win? And we still have to think it's still Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker. There's not a number one guy that we could say kind of what A.J. Brown has now brought to Jalen Hurts. You know what? We're just going to toss it up and we're going to see what happens. They don't have that. So schematically, they have to be extremely sound. And to play a secondary like the Pittsburgh Steelers that were extremely opportunistic versus Joe Burrow last week and the Cincinnati Bengals is a very tough ask in week 2 coming off of being banged up for Mac Jones. So if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have an opportunity to be sitting at 2-0 because you are not playing the Patriots of old.
Yeah, obviously.
The Patriots and the Steelers are 2 of the most storied franchises in the National Football League. They've won 6 Super Bowls. They've each won 6 Super Bowls, and they've combined for 19 AFC championships. But times have changed. Both teams might not even make the playoffs this year. So let's take a look at how things are with each of these teams right now. You got Mac Jones, obviously the Pats quarterback. The Steelers have Kenny Pickett. Hasn't played yet, but it was their first-round pick in this year's draft. The Patriots have almost $53 million in cap space next year. Pittsburgh will be hovering around $22 million, so certainly not as much. New England's over-under win total for this year is 8.5. Pittsburgh is right under that at 7.5. Pat's last playoff win was in 2018. The Steelers last won a game in the postseason back in 2016. So 2 once storied franchises. Kind of what Mike Tomlin called this week as we deep out transitional. Greg Bedard joining the bunch as well from Boston Sports Journal. Which team is Bedard right now in a better position to returning to AFC dominance?
Well, if Kenny Pickett gives the Steelers what Mac Jones gives the Patriots, I think it's the Steelers. I mean, they have impactful players at wide receiver. They have a good running back. They have a good defensive line. They have T.J. Watt, the reigning defensive player of the year. Minkah Fitzpatrick is an elite safety. They have up-and-coming corners. I think they're the most talented team, but do they have a quarterback? That's the biggest question with every team.
Yeah, to me, when I look at their roster, Beetle, it's about they've drafted better than the Patriots. They've drafted and developed better, which is why when I look at their long-term future, I can't help but think it might be the Steelers.
Yeah, and everything that Greg just said is true. The only thing left is the question about Kenny Pickett. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big question because no matter how high you're drafted as a quarterback in this league, it doesn't guarantee anything. And I won't say that they're better positioned because that's the piece they absolutely need. And so if you had to place money on it right now, I would have to take New England because they have a quarterback who's very capable of playing the position at this level. And there are a lot of guys that get drafted high that are not.
All right,
and so that's just the way I would go. But what Greg's saying is right. And we know in Pittsburgh, they're a wide receiver factory. I mean, they've let more guys walk out the door over the years, and they immediately have someone to replace them. It's absolutely wild. So
I don't know who's in their scouting department watching wide receivers, but maybe you should get that guy. All right, so we've got 2 for Pittsburgh, 1 for the Patriots. Are you making it
I'm
even?
I'm Patriots because for the reason you said, quarterback. Mac Jones has already been to the playoffs, so that means something. And the coach. I can't ignore the coach, you know. Mike Tomlin's a good coach, obviously. He's never had a losing record, been in the league since 2007. But I'm sorry, Bill Belichick and Mac Jones, I will take that pairing and then trust, even though the trust is waning, trust that Belichick can fill in everything around that eventually.
You guys both seem to have a hesitation with Kenny Pickett. What is it?
I just think it's that there are too many quarterbacks in this league that get drafted with high expectations and don't pan out.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny hasn't done it yet. I mean, he was a similar prospect to Mac Jones coming out, but at least we know when Mac Jones, he's done it. He led a team to a 10-7 record. Certainly has to have a lot of pieces around them, but they're very similar quarterbacks in terms of athletic ability and also how their mind is sort of their best part of their game.
When do you think he'll finally see the field? Like, how long does Mitch Trubisky have to stink?
I wanted to say one of the keys for my game this week was don't hurt Mitch Trubisky. Don't let Kenny Pickett come into the game because it completely changes. So it's only a matter of time, in my opinion. I say by game 5 or 6 at the latest, Pickett's in there, but you don't want him to come in late against the Patriots because he can actually throw it, which Trubisky can't.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's anyone's guess. I know what Jake Glazer reported this week, that he's not going to play this year. They're dead set against it. That can change, and you can come off that stance. I don't think they're going to do it in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. So 6 sounds right, somewhere in that range. But I think it's a great point. Make sure Mitch stays in the game.
Don't hurt him.
That is the guy you want at quarterback the entire 60 minutes.
When I covered the Dolphins, there were some games like against the Falcons when Vic was sort of like the backup, and it was like, don't hurt the starter. You don't want Vic to come in. And I just think Pickett's a much high level passer than Trubisky, and so that changes the equation big time for the Patriots.
Yeah, maybe they have another Ben Roethlisberger situation on their hand where all of a sudden he comes in and boom, they run with it. Okay, you said one of the reasons you're picking and sticking with the Patriots is coaching. So let's take a look at the 2 head coaches. Belichick, of course, 6 Super Bowl wins in 9 appearances. Mike Tomlin only has 1 title in his 2 trips to the big game. One of those losses to the Packers. Bill is 31-13 in the playoffs. Tomlin 8-9. Bill a 668 win percentage in the regular season. Tomlin closer in the regular season with 645. But let's be honest, when you put resumes side by side, Bill Belichick is clearly the superior head coach. But winds are a changing in Foxborough. And I'm not so sure now. If I was starting a team today and they said, okay, you can either have Bill Belichick man your rebuild or you can have Mike Tomlin, it would be harder for me today to say unequivocally, well, of course you have to go with Bill Belichick, simply, Tomasi, because you look at the decisions that he has made, I'd call it the last 5 or 6 years, whether it is drafting, developing, coaching, scouting, a whole bunch of things that help you build a good team. And he hasn't had success without Tom Brady. So I might actually lean a little bit more towards Mike Tomlin here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go there. I can't go there. I just can't. Belichick has won 11 games with Matt Castle. He has gone to the playoffs with Mac Jones. So it hasn't been completely only Tom Brady. We haven't seen what Tomlin can do without Roethlisberger. Not that he's any great shakes, or certainly wasn't at the end of his career, but just the totality of the body of work here. And having been around Belichick and seen this up close for 20 years, I don't see how you choose Mike Tomlin over him.
The only way I could do it is if you could tell me exactly who the coordinators are going to be, because now that's a question. If you're talking
but that's part
Bill
of it,
Belichick,
though. He
Matt
chooses
Patricia,
those.
right, and Steve Belichick versus Mike Tomlin, who I like, Terrell Austin, the defense coordinator, with Brian Flores, I like them on the defensive side. I do not like Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator. Sort of cancels out Patricia. So absent that, if the Steelers had a really good OC, I would pick them, but absent that, it's Belichick's.
Yeah, here's how you can pick Tomlin, though, and this is not for this Sunday. Bill is a better coach than Mike Tomlin. No one should be debating that. But Tomlin is a good coach. So if you're asking about who do you want coaching your team this weekend, it's the Patriots, and Bill Belichick wins the matchup. But if you're talking about starting a new team and you're looking at a 5-year window or whatever it is, the outlook, number of years, Bill just said a week ago to Shaughnessy that he's now in a year-to-year stage of his career, right? And Tomlin's 50 years old, and he's already, I think, almost 13 years removed from winning his last Super Bowl. He's 50. Bill Belichick was 49 when he won his first one with the Patriots. Like, to sort of put that in context, it tells you Mike Tomlin's got a lot of years ahead of him. He's a good coach. He relates well to players, I believe. And so just on sort of the longevity of it, like, that would be attractive to me to make him the pick over Bill, just because you don't know how much longer Bill's going to do it.
Well, and I also look at, you mentioned the way that Mike Tomlin interacts with his players. If there's one thing I don't think I've really ever much heard, at least while they're here in New England, we've never really heard rumblings of players' discontent and being vocal with that. Those things are starting to happen, which makes you have to question, can Bill Belichick at this point in his career, Greg, can he fit the mold of what you need to be in 2022 when guys are different? And, we keep going back to this thing where guys are saying, well, we want to know the why. Fine, you want us to do the Shanahan offense? Why? I don't think Bill's used to having people ask him why.
Yeah, but I think Bill, individually relates well to the players. He talks to a lot of college coaches and asks them, like, how do you reach these guys, with the age of cell phones and short attention spans? Like, he's incorporated a lot of that. But, you look at Mike Tomlin and you look at some of the guys who have left there, like Antonio Brown and, other receivers and running backs, and you're just like,
Le'Veon Bell.
Right. How the hell did he keep it together? And you're just like, well, that's a feather in Mike Tomlin's cap that he's been able to, they've been able to keep talented guys on that team because they know Mike can handle it. The Patriots, to me, stopped doing that a long time ago, where Bill says, I don't want to deal with the pain in the butts.
You don't always see the Steelers, though. I don't think of them as the most disciplined team throughout his run. So I mean, I think in terms of the on-field stuff, I will still take Belichick for that. 8-9 as a postseason record for Tomlin. There's been some very good teams in Pittsburgh over the years. You see them losing a lot more winnable playoff games than the Patriots have. And granted, Brady, we get that, but that also works in Belichick's favor. And
as much as I like Mike Tomlin, I covered him for a year in Pittsburgh. Sometimes he's almost too much of a player's coach, where guys have too much fun, and there's not that attention to detail on the field that I think Bill Belichick, especially when he's winning, demands of his guys.
That's what my main criticism of Tomlin is. He blows his teams, lose a lot of games, a lot of winnable games, and they don't win many games that they shouldn't. They don't pull many upsets at all. Does he keep things together and they're consistent? Yeah. But Bill can still pull the surprise, and they don't still lose too many, games that they should lose, that they should win.